In today's show, a flat start dooms the Trailblazers against the Toronto Raptors. And then we forget about that terrible game. We talk about the trade deadline, who could be on the move, and what moves might be ahead for the Trailblazers as they approach the deadline. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond, and you are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen every single day. Free on all platforms, 5 days a week, coming at you Monday through Friday, so start your days with it. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we have to talk about the Blazers getting stomped by the Toronto Raptors. They played Toronto on Saturday evening at the Moda Center, and they came out flat and got punked. Lost another wire-to-wire game at home against a team on the second night of a back-to-back when Portland had a rest advantage. Yuck. That's the best way to describe it. Yuck. But we'll talk about that game, and then we'll forget that game, because what matters is what's next for this team. I think we have enough data at this point in the season to say that this iteration of the Blazers just isn't that good, and that what matters is what they do next to make the next iteration of the Blazers. So we'll look ahead to the trade deadline, some reporting from Jake Fischer of Yahoo Sports about who might be on the move, who is available for the Blazers, and we'll talk about that in the second segment. And then, to close the show, Jerami Grant was offered his max contract extension on the day he was eligible. He has yet to sign it. We'll talk about his future in Portland. We discussed it a little bit, but we'll reiterate it now with some new information come to light. So let's do all of it. Let's do all of it. It's going to be a fun show. Thanks for rocking with me, but we got to do what we got to do. Fastest recap in the West. Blazers lose 123-105 on Saturday night to the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors, coming into the game, had played the evening before in San Francisco, lost to the Warriors, got on a plane, flew to Portland, where the Blazers had 2 days of rest advantage against a team that was 22-28, a bad team that played the night before on your home court, and you come out so flat and lose the game in the first 12 minutes. The Blazers find themselves down 37-14 after one. They were 6 of 22 in the opening quarter. The Raptors had 24 points in the paint. The Blazers had 14 total points. Toronto went 12 of 13 in the paint, and it wasn't like they were getting out in transition. They had just 2 fast break points and 3 second chance points in the first quarter. They were getting into the paint however they wanted, finding Precious Achiuwa, working the baseline, getting to the rim off, getting to the paint off the dribble, and scoring easily. 12 of 13 inside the painted area for the Raptors in the first quarter. They had 24 points in the paint. The Blazers scored 14 total points. The Raptors had 12 made field goals in the paint. The Blazers made 6 total field goals. It was a beatdown, an embarrassing start to the game, and Portland did their damnedest to make this competitive. Found themselves down 19 at halftime, 63-44, and then a monster performance in the third quarter, in which they outscored the Raptors 39-25. They had 39 points in that third quarter to find themselves only down 5 heading into the fourth. All that good work. Down 88-83 after 3. The Blazers were 15 of 18 from the floor in the third quarter. They just shot the dang lights out. That's 83% if you're scoring at home. They were fantastic. And then when Damian Lillard hit a three-pointer with 8 minutes and 41 seconds remaining, the Blazers got as close as they would the entire second half. Find themselves down 90-94, 8 minutes and 40 seconds left. All of their good work, now it's like, can they win the final eight and a half minutes? No, they can't. The Raptors rip off, I couldn't rip that one off my mouth. They rip off a 14-0 run to push a 4-point advantage to 18, and that's your ball game. Raptors up double digits in the final 5 minutes, and they cruise in this one, 123-105. That's your fastest recap in the West. The fourth quarter was frustrating, right, because the Blazers did all that work, but they lost this game to begin the game. I want to draw a distinction here that I think is maybe not important to you, but it's important. Language is important to me. I talk into a microphone for a small amount of money, so if I'm going to get paid to do it, I want to make sure that I'm honest with the words I use. Try to use them correctly. I don't think the Blazers' problem was lack of effort in the sense that they were dogging it. Like, I don't think that they were intentionally not trying hard. There were games last season, where they were dogging it, where it's like they didn't play hard in this game. They didn't have much interest in playing this game, and you could tell by their effort on the court. That hasn't been the case with this team this year. I don't think effort has been an issue with them. Talent has been an issue with them. Focus has been an issue with them. But to open the game, it wasn't like lack of effort in that sense. It was just that the other team played with more urgency, played harder than them. So it wasn't lack of effort in the sense that the Blazers weren't trying hard. So they weren't trying hard enough. They weren't playing hard enough. They weren't the team that brings the energy and sets the tone. They allowed the physicality of the Raptors to set the tone. They allowed just the Raptors to outwork them, outplay them just energy and heart and effort wise to open the game. It wasn't that the Blazers were dogging it. It's that the other team played with a fire that they didn't match, and then they're like, oh, that's the level we have to play to. We'll get there. You failed to match their energy, their effort, their sort of their want to level, right? Like, you don't open the game with a level of urgency, and then you shoot poorly, and the Blazers did, to be clear. They only made 1 3 and 1 of 8 from 3, 6 of 22 to open the game. Like, effort is separate from execution. I think we often equate those two things. If you don't play hard enough, you're going to put yourself in a tough position. You also miss shots while you're not playing hard enough. Yeah, that's what happens. You find yourself down 37-14 after 1, and you're scrambling for the rest of the game. And the Blazers were really good in the middle 2 quarters. Really good. Even if down 19 at the end of after 2, like, they played much better in the second quarter, and then they just straight up great in the third. But you're down 23 to a team that's flawed. Like, they don't have much depth, but they were, they're big and long, and they play aggressive. Their biggest issue is that they struggle with half-court offense, and the Blazers just gave up easy money in the half-court. Let Precious Achiuwa do whatever he wanted, and then when the game was on the line, let Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam kind of bring them home. This was a game where, yet again, the Blazers let a team that is more physical than them dictate the tone early, found themselves in a huge hole, and then couldn't climb out of it. They did this against Philly, who's a good team. They did this now against Toronto, who's not a very good team. And I thought they did it at times in that loss to Orlando, when Orlando was on the second night of a back-to-back. I don't know. There's nothing to defend about this team anymore. There's nothing to defend. They've too many opportunities for them to play the right way. For me, they've shown it. Like, they're just, I'm not like, they can't do it and they don't deserve my respect. Like, that's not how I feel. Here's how I feel. They play like a bad team too often for me to trick myself into saying they could be good. I'm like, I'll be behind on this one. I will wait for them to be good, and I will be behind the momentum. I'll be behind the trend, because too often they look like they did against Toronto, and then it's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to pump optimism into this microphone that I don't have? Like, no, we're closing on the 50 game mark, right? Like, they played 49 games. This is who they are. They're just not very good. It's fine. It's about what they do next. Real quickly, the box score that I didn't read it to you. I don't know if I said it either. That was your fastest recap in the West. I was supposed to say that like 5 minutes ago. Damian Lillard, 30 points, 3 assists, 4 boards. He had 3 assists and 4 turnovers. Anthony Simons, 14 points. Jerami Grant had 26 and 8 boards to go with 3 dimes. The Blazers played this game without Jusuf Nurkic, who missed the game with a calf injury, and without Josh Hart, who missed this game with a hamstring injury. We'll talk about both of them in the second segment. The second segment, the Raptors were shorthanded for their own part too. Like, they just were. We're missing OG Anunoby, who took a gnarly fall early in that Warriors game. He tried to go up for a dunk, got blocks, came down really hard on his left wrist, shoulder area. Stayed in the game to shoot free throws, just because if you shoot them, you're allowed to come back if you're okay. He left, went to the back, did not come back, missed this game too. It looked bad. Like, X-rays came back negative on his wrist. He didn't break his wrist, but it was just a scary fall. He did not play in this game either. His replacement in the starting lineup, Precious Achiuwa, gave the Blazers some problems. Gave the Blazers some serious problems. He finished with 27 points and 13 boards. Pascal Siakam had 24, 18, 10, and 7 assists from Scotty Barnes. 11 points, 9 assists for Fred VanVleet, and former Blazer great Gary Trent Jr. had 19. Yeah, like both teams were shorthanded. The Blazers were more shorthanded for sure, missing 2 starters as opposed to 1. I think this is my last thoughts on the game, and then we'll just flush this forever and talk about anything else. I think the Blazers' lack of size was really exposed in this game. Drew Eubanks this was not a game where he could play well in. He got out physical, he got out athleted, like the things that he sometimes is able to make up for with his quicks and stuff. The Raptors have too many answers that gave him problems. The solution ended up being for the Blazers to go small with inserting Trendon Watford back in that lineup, but it kind of took them too long to figure that out. And then even then, that was imperfect. It wasn't like a solution that would have won them the game. They might have wanted to go to that earlier, but they just didn't. They didn't get to it. They were struggling too much too early to start. By the time it was time to experiment, they're already down double digits. And finally, like, sure, the being shorthanded is a problem because it exposed a lack of depth. They just don't have other big folks. They don't have enough other big bodies on the bench to throw in there. Abu Baji was out with a knee injury, so even if it was going to be he was going to be active in this game, he wasn't even available with a knee issue. But I'll say this: I don't blame the slow starts on the coaching staff. What you think, that Chauncey Billups and Scott Brooks and Roy Rogers aren't in there saying, hey, we got to start the game strong. Here's what we want to do. Here's the game plan. Like, you think they're not talking to these dudes about, hey, let's not have a repeat of some of the bad starts we've had. Coming into this game, the Blazers had the sixth worst net rating in the first quarters in the league. They've been a bad first quarter team all year long. After this one, they dropped down to 5th. Their net rating actually dropped 2 full points per 100 possessions because it got blasted in the first quarter of this game. Yeah, like they've been bad all year, and I blame the players for that. I don't think that's a coaching thing. Your mileage may vary there. Okay, flush this game. Let's never talk about it again. I already went longer than I wanted to. Let's talk about trades. Josh Hart, Jusuf Nurkic. There's some trade news. Let's talk about it in the second segment. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Daily fantasy made easy. I play Prize Picks on the app, but you can play it on prizepicks.com, or you can download the app right there on your phone. How it works is you're picking between 2 and 6 players, on your entry, and you're just picking over or under the lines set by Prize Picks. It's just you versus those projections. There's no field, there's no sharks, it's just you versus the numbers. I play basketball, so it's things like points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. Prize Pick sets the line. I pick above or below that line, and I can win my money. If you go 6 for 6, you can win 25 times your dollars, but you don't have to go 6 for 6. You can control your wager, control how lucky you're feeling. Say, I'm going to get 4 out of 6 right, 5 out of 6 right, and set your odds from there. It's super fun to play, and I think you'll enjoy it. So why not go to prizepicks.com right now, and when you're signing up, enter the promo code LOCKEDON and get it up to $100 instantly matched on your first deposit. Put in $100, they'll match $100. Put in $50, they'll match $50. So don't wait. Go take advantage. Sign up today using that promo code LOCKEDON and get a 100% deposit match up to $100. That's Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. All right. Let's talk trades. The Blazers are kind of playing basketball like a stubbed toe. You really don't want to stub your toe. You know that bedpost is always in the same spot every morning when you get up, and yet you stub your toe on it. You say, why? That's kind of how the Blazers feel right now. They're stubbed. They're very much a stubbed toe. So let's talk theoretical basketball improvements as opposed to the actual basketball team right now. Jake Fischer, an intrepid reporter now of Yahoo Sports, wrote a story that came out on Friday, published on Yahoo's website on Friday, that talked about the Blazers' sort of roster futures. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that Jake reported in that story here to close the show. Appreciate you, Jake. Good stuff. Jake, a really solid young newsbreaker in the game. Jake reports, we'll talk about Jerami Grant to close the show, but first, he said the Blazers are giving other teams, rival teams, the impression that the team is, quote, open to discussing the majority of the players on its roster, particularly Josh Hart and Jusuf Nurkic. The Josh Hart stuff's been out there. I mean, it's like I've been speculating that Josh Hart is like clearly the most tradable piece and very, very likely to get traded since like the preseason. It's been something that I've mentioned on the show a cajillion times. I think now it's sort of catching on nationally that yes, indeed the Blazers are like shopping out and seeing what's out there for Josh Hart. Jusuf Nurkic, I think the fan base has speculated a lot about his him being dealt in either like you have to trade Nurk or like you can't trade Nurk, depending on sort of which side of the coin you land on. But I think this is the first time in writing we have seen a reporter, particularly from the national level, specifically say Jusuf Nurkic. The Blazers are like discussing Jusuf Nurkic trade markets out there with other teams, or like trade interest for Jusuf Nurkic with other teams. I think let's quickly on the Josh Hart stuff. It's like, yeah, I think Hart will end up getting traded, whether it ends up being like a sort of a smaller deal like Caleb Martin in Miami, or if they end up getting Jay Crowder, just get a little bigger from Phoenix, or any such 3-team deal that nets them like a little more size on the wing. I think that's what they would be after, particularly if that person makes around the same money as Josh Hart and isn't entering free agency this summer, so they don't have to pay him. So it like kind of works out better for their financial situation this summer, because if they had to give someone a raise after acquiring Josh Hart, you might as well just keep Josh Hart, try to figure out if you can give him a raise without bumping up against having a very expensive roster, which is coming soon. The Nurk stuff is more interesting to me because, not more interesting, I don't know. The Nurk stuff is also interesting because I think a lot of folks have openly speculated about the Blazers could use an upgrade at center. Certainly a guest I had on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, Mark Schindler, said as much. Like, I would like to see the Blazers with just a different center, and I think it's fair. Nurk isn't bad. He's not a bad basketball player. In fact, I think Nurk has mostly been good this year, I would argue. He's mostly been good. He's inconsistent and frustrating, for sure. Mercurial, as some people like to write about him. I think that's the word that often ends up in front of Nurk's name in writing, but he's mostly just inconsistent. I don't think he's been negative, particularly for long stretches. I don't think he's been bad. I think he's mostly, on balance, been a good basketball player this year. The question is, with this roster built the way it is, with a lot of reliance on Anthony Simons and Damian Lillard, is a not super mobile, super athletic big man what this team needs to maximize what it wants to do. And given the schemes that Chauncey Billups prefers to play on defense, is Jusuf Nurkic the player best suited to execute those schemes? To Nurk's credit, he's done everything that's been asked of him basically on defense. He has played a ton. When they've played more drop coverage, like leaned back into playing that more conservative style of pick and roll defense, Nurk has done that. When they've played zone, he's been in the middle of the zone. When they've played Nurk at the level, or Nurk chasing or showing and then recovering, he's played all. The Blazers have been pretty scheme versatile. They haven't been very effective, but their scheme, they've showed a lot of versatility and willingness to do different things on defense this year. Nurk has done all of them. It's not like he's pouted. In the past, there's been some times where he would complain about his role a little bit in post-game media. I don't think he's done that. I think for the most part, when Nurk has played bad, he sat up in post-game media and said, I haven't been good. I think he's played well. He's taken responsibility for when he's played poorly. I don't know what else you want from Nurk. The question with trading him is not, for me, really about his effectiveness. It's about his fit in sort of modern playoff level settings and how much money he's owed. That's the question. I think Nurk is a little bit hard to trade because he is still owed 3 years and $54 million total after this season. So average annual value about 17. It's an NBA contract, so it's typical of NBA contracts. Many, not all. It scales up. So each year he's getting a raise. So by the end of by the final year of his contract, he's making about $20 million. This year he's making about $15.5 million. But let's call it 17 for the average annual value. That's maybe just the simplest way to think about it. I don't even think paying Jusuf Nurkic $17 million a year is that big of a ripoff. And quite frankly, I think he's lived up to his contract. I think there's an argument that he's outplayed the money he's been given this year. Like I said, he's been good. The question is, does another team value a center that is most suited to playing a more traditional conservative defensive style coverage that is increasingly less common in playoff level basketball? Do they value that for multiple seasons into the future? And what would they be willing to give up to acquire that type of player? My guess, just looking across the league, is not much. I just don't think there's, in general, a big market for centers, period, in the league, and much less centers with several years and money left on their contract. Some team could be willing to take on that deal because, like I said, Nurk's not bad. Just imperfect for where the Blazers are and probably imperfect for a lot of high-level teams looking, moving forward. Doesn't mean that they can't find a suitor. I just think it is admittedly challenging. And because of the Blazers draft pick situation, first round picks owed to the Bulls and protected through 2028. So the Blazers have to make the playoffs this year, convey that pick to the Bulls, and then they'll have their picks freed back to them, or miss the playoffs this year and have a draft pick to trade. But they really don't have a draft pick to trade entering the trade deadline unless they unprotect it. They're not good enough to drop the protections on the pick this year right now. That would be a mistake. So it's not like they have a sweetener. Not like they have a future first way down the line to trade. It's just, even then, I think giving up a first-round pick to get off Jusuf Nurkic's contract would be a mistake in and of itself. So what you're looking for, and quite frankly, even just like scanning the trade machine, the Fanspo trade machine, the Rembrandt of Fanspo out here, I don't see an obvious suitor. Like, I'm having trouble. I even sent, one of my friends sent me the same message. It's like, I'm surveying the league and trying to find a landing spot. I don't see one. That doesn't mean that another team won't come in and be willing to take on the money or be willing to find the trade or whatever it might be. Or if you, how about Josh Hart and Jusuf Nurkic? Does that get you there? Whatever it might be. I just think it's hard to trade Jusuf Nurkic. It seems hard to trade Jusuf Nurkic in a straight across trade because I don't see a team that's willing, that makes natural sense for them. And the Blazers don't have like the obvious sweeteners unless a couple future second round picks starting in 2024 is the sweetener that gets it done. So you're probably talking a multi-team deal and this and that type of thing to make it happen. You're probably looking at a multi-team deal or the Blazers taking back on some money, which they don't want to do because they don't want to be a tax team this year. So it will be difficult. And all that said, I have a hard time finding an idea where you might be able to get something different at center. But the idea that you could naturally trade Nurk to upgrade him at center just doesn't seem within reality for me. I would like to see the Blazers have a more athletic center. I think that would be better fit for the rest of the roster and what Chauncey Billups wants to do. I just don't see it happening with a Nurk trade. Perhaps a Nurk and Josh Hart trade together gets it done. And certainly, I think here's the important part beyond my sort of opinions and thoughts about this. The Blazers are exploring that avenue. That's what they seem to also agree with, is that this team, their future iteration of this team that looks better probably includes a different flavor than what Jusuf Nurkic brings to the center position. That said, saw that game against the Raptors. They were worse. They missed Nurk. They might not have won that game with Nurk on the court. Who knows? But yeah, they got killed on the glass late in that game. They got killed inside. Their lack of size was obvious. And whether they trade Nurk and find that upgrade or head another direction, that'll be interesting. The other part here, and I think this is important, is that Fischer mentioned that the Blazers are committed to building a playoff contender around Dame this season. That means that if they do trade Jusuf Nurkic, they do trade Josh Hart, they're looking for players who can contribute now, not in the future, not draft picks, not parts for that. Players who can contribute now. And if you trade Jusuf Nurkic, you're looking for and Josh Hart, you will need at some point in one of those exchanges a center who can play NBA minutes, like at least 20 minutes a night in the NBA immediately. Is it out there? I don't know. I hope it is, but I don't see an obvious one just glancing around. Many of you have sent me fake trades that I don't like, and I've told you as much as in the email, but I love a civil back and forth. So if you have a Nurk fake trade, lockdownblazerspod@gmail.com. Okay, to close the show, how about this? Jerami Grant has been offered a max extension and has turned it down. Let me tell you why that is just straight up not bad news. It might not even be news regardless. But before we get there, let's talk about TurboTax. Go to TurboTax.com and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who'll do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can do not taxes. Show your eyes things that are not taxes. Unpack a moving box of not taxes. Taste not taxes. Sing not taxes a lullaby. Hope not taxes sleeps through the night. Grab a saddle and ride not taxes into the sunset. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can relax. Feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. That's Intuit TurboTax. Full service products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes required. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Let's talk about Jerami Grant. According to Jake Fischer of Yahoo Sports, the Blazers have officially and formally presented Jerami Grant with his max contract extension offer, and he has yet to sign it. Rutrow, shout out to Kevin McAllister, Home Alone Scream. I don't think this is a big deal. In fact, I did a show on this when Grant was eligible, assuming that, one, the Blazers would offer him the contract, and two, that he probably wouldn't sign it because he's outplayed the money. Let's talk about that. I don't mean that as an I told you so. What I mean that as a go listen to the dang pod. Listen to the pod every day, because I am not the most plugged in person, and I do not pretend to be on here. You're not going to see me faking the funk. I'm not going to talk about whispers and sources unless I got whispers and sources. That's not what I'm doing here. In a past life, that's maybe something I have. In a current life, I don't pursue that. What I do pursue is using logic, because I follow the league very closely, to try to help you become a smarter fan. So if you listen to the show, when Jake Fischer reported this, you would feel comfort in knowing or believing, hey, I think Mike Richmond talked about this in a podcast like a couple weeks back, that Jerami Grant probably has outplayed his max contract offer, which is 4 years, $112 million. That seemed heading into this season like a bunch of money for Jerami Grant. Jerami Grant's been great. He's been their second best player all season long. There was a time early in the season when he's pretty clearly their best player. Then Damian Lillard got going, and has been great. And yeah, he's the guy. But it was going to be bad news if Jerami Grant was their best basketball player all year long. But Grant has outplayed that. However, Jerami Grant's max contract this summer, also mentioned in the previous episode, 5 years, $233 million. He's not getting 5 years and $46 million annually. That was in the story. I think it scares people when they say, Jerami Grant's turned down a max contract. Here's another max contract extension. I think what they missed in the middle, and they may have missed in the logic of Locked On Blazers, is Jerami Grant's not getting $46 million out on the market. What Jerami Grant might be getting is a fifth year. Worth debating whether the Blazers should give him a fifth year on the contract, but if he signs now as an extension in season, the max number of years you can get is 4, and the max dollar amount is 112. In the summer, he can basically double that, but he can get a fifth year. So I think more importantly, the most likely scenario for Grant is that he signs for something like $30 million annually as opposed to $28, $33 million annually as opposed to $28 million, but he also gets a fifth year. I think when he signs, we'll talk about the value of the contract. There's no reason to worry about that now, but I think that's why if you're like, oh, Grant didn't sign his max contract, he's pretty much Jason Quick did a story about it in The Athletic. It's Grant has all but said he wants and hopes to be back. And obviously there's some other factors, but wants and hopes to be back. He was basically personally recruited by Damian to come here. He's got a big role. He's scoring a whole bunch of points. He's having the best year of his career. And this team can pay him more money than other teams can with larger raises, larger contract, more years, larger raises each year, which is how you get to a larger contract. Than the open market. And there just aren't teams on the open market that are going to be appealing to him in terms of winners. The team that could pay him is the Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah, sure. Yes, they absolutely could. And I guess there is a world where that's the most there's other teams that are going to have cap space, but they're not good. They're bad basketball teams, and they probably aren't going to cash in their cap space. I guess OKC is in a world. Will he go back to Oklahoma? But it's Memphis. That's the good basketball team that's going to have cap space this summer. That's basically the one team that the Blazers are going to have to worry about. Is Memphis going to cash in their sort of patience for Jerami Grant? I don't know. Maybe he could help. He could help, but there's not there's a ton of suitors out there. So it's really just about Grant waiting till the offseason, waiting till free agency begins, becoming a free agent, and then instead of a 4 for 112, he can sign whatever, 5 for it seems like so much money, but 5 for 150, 5 for 148. That's what I'll put it at. I'm gonna say 5 for 148 with a player option on the 5th year, and that's what he'll sign for. So Jerami Grant not picking that up now is not a big deal. I expect him wholeheartedly to be back in Portland. I just expect that not signing now allows him to sign a longer contract for more money when you hit free agency. That's what the future of the team is. They're shopping Josh Hart and Jusuf Nurkic, and they're going to re-sign Jerami Grant to a fat deal in the offseason. When someone reports this obvious stuff, if you listen to Monday, January 30th show, the logic will already have found you, plus some reporting from Jake Fischer of Yahoo Sports. That's going to do it for today's show. I appreciate you listening. The Blazers close out a homestand against the Hawks. We will talk on Monday evening. We will talk about that game on Tuesday's show. Come back for that one. Come back for the shows the rest of the week. 5 days a week, available wherever you get podcasts, Monday through Friday. Make it your first listen every day. Tell your friends to do the same. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.